Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. My guest this week is a chief officer, instructor, veteran, author, and leadership consultant. He began his career in the U.S. Army and has since served with multiple fire departments. He is the current chief of operations for a fire department in California. He holds a bachelor's degree in business, a master's degree in leadership, and a doctorate in strategic leadership. He's the author of Forging Your Team, Demystifying Team Development for First Responders, and the founder of Fire Dog Consulting. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Johnny Torgeson. You did. What's going on, man? Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Always excited to talk. So, illustrious resume, lots of education. We'll see if we can put it to the test and soak some of that knowledge out of you, some of that wisdom out of you. But before we get to where you got to, we got to get to where you came from, right? Sure. So let's start the origin story. What's the Johnny Torgeson origin story?
Let's see. I was born in Downey, California. Just kidding, bro. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Man. I started out my fire service career in the U.S. Army as a firefighter. And I did that for about 4 years. I was able to travel to different states and work in different states with different fire departments. I was also able to deploy as a firefighter to Egypt right after 9/11, actually. I was this close to actually deploying the 9/11, but we had a lot of our equipment, our fire engine, our resources already on ships to Egypt when it all happened. So nonetheless, got out as a civilian and been working for the Department of War ever since. So I worked for MCW Barstow, Fire and Emergency Services. Actually, in the midst of that time, I went contract. I went contract as a firefighter overseas for Kellogg Brown and Root, or what people know as KBR. So I worked there for about, or I would say not there, but in Uzbekistan for about a year.
Wow.
And came back and then been at the department that I currently work at ever since. So total amount of time at my current department is about 21 years, and I'm the assistant chief of operations there. And I absolutely love my department, man. I love it, dude. So I've stayed there so long, and I continue to pour my life and energy into it because I love the people and I love everything that it's about, So
yeah. Awesome. So talk to me about the differences between these different, sectors of the fire service, if you would, right? You've kind of done traditional military, then you've done the contracting side, now kind of back to the civilian, but still military on the other side. What are the differences, pros and cons of all those different ways to serve?
Yeah. Let's see. So as far as the military is concerned, the military aspect comes first, right? And so I would say sometimes that mission gets in the way, and I use that loosely because it doesn't really get in the way. You have one mission, that's defend America. But the purest form of the fire service, sometimes you're not able to do some of those things and functions because the military comes first. And so I would say that would be the cons, but the pros about it is the experience it gave me of seeing how the fire service operates all over the world and each state completely, and I mean completely different. The fire service is different worlds depending on which state you work in, different cultures, different ways of going about doing things. Everyone has their own, modus operandi, I guess. And so it gave me a lot of good experience in that aspect where many firefighters, like your retirement's kind of like almost like imprisons you. I don't want to say imprisons you, but like you're not able to go, typically to other states and other departments because you're going to be starting all over on your retirement. And so once you start working for a department, typically firefighters, you're just there. And that's where you start and finish your career. And so I feel like I've been blessed to, see a bunch of different aspects of the fire service.
Inside the military, do they focus on specific tasks? Like in terms of, are you doing kind of like wildland or structural or ARF, or like, are you kind of expected to do all of them? Obviously all of those exist inside of a base. How does that kind of shake out?
Yeah. So, it's much like your municipal fire departments, and that is you have target hazards in your first due. And so it's broken down the same way. If you have airfields, then that's a target hazard, depending on how many aircraft movement you have. Then you're going to have to be able to respond to those things. If you have a wildland mission, you need to, it's going to be a target hazard, and you got to strategically plan for that, and it'll be in your CRASOC. And so there's no difference in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. So if we do go back again to like your motivations, what were some of the early childhood motivations that got you into service, be it military or, as a first responder?
I'm going to give you an honest answer. Here's the honest answer is my dad, for like basically my early teens on, would ask me like, hey son, what are you going to do with your life? And I didn't really have an answer for him because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. But he would routinely ask me this and then give me an admonition. And that is, hey, you can't float through life. You need to know what you're going to do, have laser-like focus, and then go after it. So figure that out before you get out of high school. And so, I listened to the advice, but I never followed through with it, Mm-hmm. And so we're getting to like the second half of my senior year, and my dad is in the back of my mind, and I'm like coming up to crunch time. So typical personality of myself, like, procrastinate. And then, once the procrastination ends, then it's like, like full bore, like, let's go. Mm-hmm. But I'm procrastinating up until that point. So it's funny how you could see some of these, like in our own behavior, some of this stuff starting to form that will follow us the rest of our life. But I digress. I'm thinking one day, and I probably give about, 15 seconds of thought to this, straight up. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be a fireman. Firemen are pretty cool. Like, and that was it. Like, I was like, I'll be a fireman. And then so like, that was the plan. I told my dad that, and he was like, cool, let's see it, go do it. Right. And so immediately started putting in for all the prerequisites so I can get into a fire academy that was attached to a college. And so the long and skinny of that, because my plan was just to work for Anaheim Fire. I lived in Anaheim, and I was just like, okay, I'll just work for Anaheim Fire. Now, mind you, I have nobody in public service in my family. I have no firefighter friends. I have no idea what I'm doing or what I'm getting into. And the reason why it's important is because when I chose I'll just be a firefighter, this is late 90s when, for every one position, there's thousands of applicants. Like, people are sleeping on the streets in order to get in line before they have a cutoff of applicants. And, where you're doing paper tests and the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I have no idea about any of this. I'm just like, I'll be a fireman, it's got to be easy, right? So nonetheless, I'm taking my prerequisite classes and just going through the process, right? And one day I'm at home and I get a phone call. Now, mind you, this phone call is a phone that's attached to a wire that's attached to a wall. Now, I know a lot of our audience members, this is going to blow their mind, but it was on a cord. And so I pick up this phone, and on the other side is a recruiter. And the recruiter's just cold called, right? And so I don't even know how he got my number, right? But he got my number, and he's like, hey, son, what are you doing with your life? That whole thing. Expecting me to say got nothing going on, sir, let's join. But that's not what I said. I said, hey, man, I'm going to school to be a fireman. I want to be a fireman. I appreciate you. And I was really this cordial with him. I was like, hey, I really appreciate your time, but I'm just not interested. And he's like, well, and he asked the perfect question, bro. Like, it was like the perfect question. He said, well, how long is that going to take you? And it just so happened a couple of weeks prior, I'm in class, a fire behavior class. And it's I don't remember the dude's name, but he was a captain from Corona Fire. He says the average age, once again, this is late 90s, the average age for a firefighter to get started in his career in Southern California at that time was 28 years old. That's just how long it took to like go to medic school and go through the process and just everything. So mind you, when he says this, I'm 17 by the way. Like I graduated early, not because I'm smart, but just my birthday. Okay.
Yeah.
Neanderthal. Okay. So just make sure the audience knows that.
That's Dr. Neanderthal, right?
Yeah. Well, this is Dr. C&D student for all of high school.
Okay.
and a couple of F's sprinkled in there too.
Yeah.
How I graduated, I don't know. It's a pure miracle. That's how you know God exists, because I graduated high school. So this captain tells me this information, and I do the math, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to beat the odds. It's not going to take me till I'm 28, right? Like you just start thinking that. So anyways, when this recruiter asked me this question, I'm honest with them. I was like, well, they told me it's going to take till I'm about 28, but I don't plan on taking it that long. And he says, well, son, what if I told you you can be a firefighter in the next 6 months, getting paid to do it and getting your college paid for? I literally sat on the phone for about 20 seconds. I'm like, I don't want to join the military, but I seriously don't want to wait 11 years to be a firefighter. So I'm Mr. Path of Least Resistance guy. I'm like, I'll see you in your office, man.
Sold. Yeah.
Yeah, sold. So here's the cool thing about it, though, is like there's only 200, at the time, there was only 200 U.S. Army firefighters in all of the military, all of the Army.
Wow.
So it was actually, he didn't tell me this because he's a recruiter and he's just trying to boost his numbers. But it was a long shot to even get that position. And I had no idea, but nonetheless, God had a plan for me because, he wasn't wrong. I finished out my college semester, and then so I went to the delayed entry program, what it's called. And then once I joined, went to basic training, which crazy stories are like awesome stories that really changed my life. 6 months later after that, I was on the back of an engine with lights and sirens and going like, I have no idea what I'm doing. My heart is racing. I'm like, what is happening right now? It felt surreal because it just happened that quick, like less than a year after, being in these classes. And all of a sudden, like, I'm like going to emergencies. Like it felt like an out of body experience. I don't know if that was like that for you, but it was just insane to me.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very different coming into the fire service story than you. All right. It was the traditional kind of long one, the long experience, went to fire school and then worked the paid on call and then the part-time and then finally full-time, right? Took me the classic, 8 years to get my first full-time job, but this might find us into the weeds, but I want to go there because I'm interested. How on earth does the U.S. Army get by with that few fire department or that few firefighters?
Yeah, because most of them are, and that's why I have the job I have, is because most of them are deployable. Meaning what happens is when they start setting up these forward operating bases, they need a fire department in the rear with the gear for all of this tent cities and, just basically the makeshift cities when they're deployed. And so when you hear like us being deployed to places, specifically, just depending on the branch, but in this case, the U.S. Army, U.S. Army firefighters are going over there and setting up makeshift fire departments on the fly, sending all of their stuff over there. So that way there's fire protection for these little cities that they set up.
Wow. And they can do that with just a couple hundred people for the entire U.S. Army. That's, I mean, that seems, it seems like the odds are way stacked against you, right? I mean, I don't have, I mean, I don't know, you might know off the top of your head, but like how many people are in the U.S. Army? Like it's obviously hundreds, like millions, right? I would get millions. I don't think they say 1% of the population. So that would be like what? Like 45 million people are in the military?
Yeah, and that's broken up in between like 5 different branches.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but still, I mean, 200 for all that is not a good odds.
Yeah. So
Hey, gang, it's me from the future. I just thought I should clarify that this math is really, really wrong. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but it's like 2 million people are in the military. That's still a humongous number, but it's not 45 million. I don't know. The math's just super wrong. I don't have a good justification, but I needed to clarify this because, you know, it's just so flagrantly wrong. All right, back to the show. Bye.
Just for the Army, like the Marine Corps, they have deployable units. The Air Force has deployable units. So each branch has the same setup.
Oh, copy. So being as you came from a family that didn't have public service history, what was their thought of it, of the idea of you? Granted, in the late 90s, we were peacetime, right? But what was their thought about you joining the military?
So every single one of the males on my dad's side was in the military.
Oh, okay.
And then like my grandfather flew in World War II, and so like, and that was on my mom's side. And so it was very much military family. My dad was in the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
And so like that was another reason why there was less hesitation for me to join, because in the back of my mind, I kind of felt like, oh man, I'm like, if I don't join, I'm breaking tradition, even though I was like going to be a fireman and break tradition. But it, like, to me, like, it solved both things. Like, oh, I can be a fireman and not break tradition of like males serving in the military, my family. So for my dad, it was, you know, it's like, no problem. Like, get after it, son. Like, do your thing, you know. My mom, on the other hand, was like supportive, but I know she wanted me around. You know, she doesn't want me, you know, going off doing stuff. She wants her son around. So
as someone who was in the military when 9/11 happened, how do you remember that shifting your service? Obviously, it's changed everything, but like, what do you remember about that time and then the paradigm shift inside the military?
Yeah. So the morning that it happened, I was actually, ironically, in a terrorist briefing. So I'm in Fort Drum, New York. So I'm in the state of New York when this happens. And while we're in this terrorist briefing, because our deployment was already set, I was going to Operation Bright Star, and it's where basically I don't know if they still do Operation Bright Star, but it's basically where all of the allies meet up in Egypt, just south of Alexander. So that famous, you know, city of Alexander, the Alexander Great set up in Egypt. We're getting all of our briefings, like our workup for that. And one of the briefings was a terrorist briefing. So that way we can spot terrorism and anti-terrorism stuff and whatnot. And so this, I don't remember his rank, but I don't know, some officer comes into the room like in a panic, essentially. And it was like, hey, we just been hit by terrorists, and they bombed the World Trade Center, because at that moment they didn't even know it was a plane. They thought it was a bomb. So he literally said they bombed the World Trade Center. So all of us literally just thought it was like part of like a drill, like an exercise, because like, what are the odds, you know? And so we didn't take him serious at first. And he's like, no, turn on the news. We just been attacked. And then everyone's hair stood up and we're like, what the heck? So we turn it on, and lo and behold, you know, we see the first tower smoking. And so they excuse us out of the briefing. We go to our kind of fire department headquarters, and we're watching the news, and then we see the second plane fly into the tower. And let me tell you, that was a crazy experience, because the range of emotions from all the firefighters there was everything from like weeping and crying to pissed. And I remember some of the firefighters getting in like not fisticuffs, but like fighting each other, like wrestling fighting, like they were so mad and they pissed each other off. Like, and so like, it was crazy. And then some people were just like super quiet and like kind of like in shock almost, And so I got to see all those range emotions in real time of how it affected every single person as they're watching that on the news. And then everyone coalesced and it was like, we got to go. We got to go. We're going to go help. We have the skills, the abilities. We're ready. We're a deployable unit. So out of everybody that can just like deploy on a heartbeat and get all our stuff there, let's go. And so our NCOIC was like, yeah, absolutely. He got a hold of our command, and our command was like, yep, you guys are going. We're going to deploy you guys. But in the midst of that, because this is all happening within like the first hour of all this stuff, is they find out that our engine and all of our supplies are already on the ship.
Oh,
it made it to where we didn't have anything. We would just be a body. And they're like, nope, your guys' stuff is already being sent off. And so therefore we're not going to send another deployable unit. You guys are still going to go. You're not going to go to the World Trade Center. So now, mind you, knowing what I know now, it was actually a really good thing because I'm sure you've seen the statistics of the amount of death and cancer that has come out of that it saved my life not going to it. Now, here's the caveat. I would still make that decision to go today. I truly would. But in hindsight, it actually saved my life.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that the number of post 9/11 deaths from exposure have now surpassed the day of for firefighters, which is crazy.
Absolutely.
And they're still fighting for the benefits for them, and they're doing a relatively good job of doing it, but it's an ongoing battle to just get those people covered in terms of medically, So I don't want to skip over something that you brushed on, which is some of the lessons that you learned through boot camp. Right. And I think that like that's such a formative part for people that I know that were in the military, despite the fact that it ends up being just a small like blink of an eye in a military career. It ends up being very formative. So especially someone like you that's taken so much onus of leadership and stuff. What did you take out of military boot camp?
Yeah. So that's such a good question, Jake, because it's actually going in my second book. I write in detail the story. Have you ever been told, Jake, that if you don't get good grades, you're going to amount to nothing? Have you ever been told that?
That's the story of my school career. It's like,
I was told the same thing. Now, mind you, in my opinion, it's said with good intentions, right? You want to start off life with a good foundation, good education, all that stuff. But what I learned is that it's just a complete lie. They're not lying on purpose, right? But and maybe lie is not the right word. It's completely inaccurate. Can it be true? Absolutely. But is it true? No. So it's a dichotomy. So why is that important for basic training? As you remember, I'm a CED sprinkled F student. 1.5 was the minimum back in the day because it's 2.0 grade point average now, I'm pretty sure. I was like 1.7.
Yeah.
That tells you my average.
I was a 1 point something student too, so don't worry about it. We did okay.
But here's the thing. I can laugh and joke about it now because it's irrelevant. I went into basic training with that in the back of my mind, like I really didn't think that I was, being a firefighter, but I don't know, in the back of my mind, I didn't really picture myself elevating in life, right? And reaching big goals and doing all kinds of cool stuff in life, even though I wanted to. In fact, I'll backtrack a little bit so people understand my personality. And that is, I grew up in this yuppie neighborhood. So if people don't know what yuppie neighborhoods are, like people in their like early 30s, late 20s, middle class, white suburban neighborhoods, and that's where I grew up. And what I noticed was like people were like starting off late in life, in my opinion at the time. Now I don't look at it late in life now, but when I'm 15, 16, I'm like, gosh, dang, you're like 1 foot in the grave and you're finally having a kid and you're finally following the laws. Like, I ain't doing that. And then on top of that, so that was one very impressionable experience that I had growing up, was seeing that and not wanting to break the mold of that. So I wanted to like get started early. And then two, and this is going to sound cliche, but like I was profoundly, and I mean profoundly, affected, not affected, but like influenced by our founding fathers. It sounds weird, but like I really was. And what influenced me was reading about them. Like I was so just intrigued. Like when you read about the life, and you can literally pick any one of our founding fathers, pull it out of the bag, and they're a lawyer, they're a military veteran and war hero, they're a business owner, they're a farmer, they're like a politician, they're a statesman. It's just insane. And you're like, and that's one person. And you're like, yeah. Why did you live 1,000 lifetimes in one lifetime? And you match that up to what I saw in my neighborhoods. And it was like one career, like working your way up the ranks. And so I looked at like back in the day and how they lived life and what I was noticing around me at that time. And I didn't want that. What I wanted was to live 1,000 lifetimes in one lifetime. But moving on to basic training, even though that's what I wanted, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I got C's and D's because I just didn't care. So I guess that's not happening for me. Make sense now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here's how basic training literally changed the trajectory of my life. Is picture this. It's like the first week and we're all in like this barracks room. And it's like that cold, we're like on the second or third floor. It's like cold linoleum. It's type 2 construction, mm-hmm. cinder block. Like there's a big whiteboard. It's very clean and sterile. And then we're all like crisscross applesauce, like kindergartners on the ground. And there's these drill sergeants that are in front of us. And I mean, they are squared away. They got like their mount me hats. They're like this. You can't even see their eyes,
Yeah.
Like, talk to you and there's like nothing, right? Uniforms are like all pressed with like gig lines and just, it was quite the experience. I'm like, gosh darn, this is wild. But they're all up there talking and they're writing names on this whiteboard. And some were giggling and pointing and they're looking at us and pointing. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like what? And so a few moments later, I'm starting to figure it out. And what they were doing was they were betting. They were literally betting on us. And they were picking who was going to be the physical fitness stud out of the entire company and who was going to have the top physical, what we call a PAT score. Mm-hmm. So when I find this out, I look on the board, my name is not on there, bro. I'm like, what the heck? Not even a consideration. Like I don't even think they've looked my way. Now, mind you, here's what I understand about this situation is that I'm a scrawny pipsqueak. Like I wouldn't have picked me either. Okay. But I'm not thinking like that at the time, right? I'm thinking like, whatever, man. Like heck no. So I'm looking at these names on the board and I look at the people and I'm like, oh, I see why you picked them, but I am literally going to destroy these fools. I am going to wreck them. And so what I did was from that moment forward, entire basic training is anytime we were like getting smoked. So like smoked was like where they just go out there and they torture us. They torture us physically, like just for hours, bro. And it's like, no, that's not even hyperbole, just hours and hours of just exercise and getting after it. And then when you're tired, getting yelled at for being tired, and it's like, you better keep going. And so they had this area and it was called the pit. Okay. And it's one of the areas that they would take us to go smoke us. And so like you would bear crawl, like this pit was huge too, by the way, like 2 football fields, but picture them kind of like sideways to each other or next to each other. And it was filled with like rubber shredded tires and then like railroad tires. So big, long pit. And they would have us, bear crawl across. They would have us crab crawl across. They would wheelbarrow across, like you name it, whatever torturous thing your body can do, like that's what they did. And the reason why that's important is because I treated every single one of those events like I was doing the PT test against those other people. And so I made sure no matter how tired I was, I would finish first. Like if we're crab crawling and we're talking, 150 other, people in this pit with me, I'm going to be first. I don't care what's happening. I get through about like halfway through basic training and I'm still doing what I do, right? Just still pissed off. And one of the drill sergeant yells out, "Private Torgeson, front center," and so I'm like, I run up like literally like Forrest Gump. Like it's the only way I can explain it. This drill sergeant. And he's like, "Private Torgeson, why are you always ahead of everybody," or whatever words he used. And I thought in the moment, I was like, man, I can't tell him what I'm actually thinking. Like you guys pissed me off. And so I'm going to be first. And so the only thing I can muster up within a few seconds was, "Cause I have to, drill sergeant." Like totally like Forrest Gump, like, "Cause you told me to, drill sergeant." Like
yeah, exactly.
Almost the same words, bro. But in any case, we get to the final PT test. And not only did I smash everybody in my company, but I smashed everybody in the battalion. And so I'm up on stage and they're giving me just all kinds of, I'm like getting all kinds of ribbons and awards and all the things. And they keep calling my name up, and everyone's just kind of watching me in the audience and in the crowd. Now, mind you, everyone, like most people have like their family there. I'm just alone. I'm just like doing my thing. Like it's just Private Torgeson up there. But when I got done with that experience, I learned that all I had to do was actually put effort into something. Now, mind you, I was in sports and I was really good at wrestling, but my coaches could never get me to put like real effort into it. When I was in school, my parents and the teachers would always try and get me to put effort into something, and I wouldn't. I would just half-ass everything. It was the one time in my life where I put effort into something and I literally crushed everybody. And I mean crushed. Went into AIT, which is Advanced Individual Trainings, where we go to the Fire Academy. And because of that experience, I did the same thing. You know what I did? I won the battalion again. I literally crushed everybody. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I literally just have to put in effort. Like that's the key to freaking life. It doesn't matter about grades or like my destiny was not set at freaking 18 years old.
What's the key to accessing that? If somebody was listening and they feel like they're floundering or they don't have the ability to access that type of motivation and effort, how does somebody go about accessing that?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. That's the God's honest truth, because it's so individual. Typically, and my story isn't any different. Like if you listen to like these pro athletes, it's typically people counting them out. Typically people telling them that their destiny is already written. And so what they do is they go on a mission to prove everybody wrong. And then they do. It was the same thing when I started my health club I started a health club at 24 years old, a 24-hour health club. It's a pretty amazing story too that's going to be in the book. But I had a captain. He was a captain, and I'm like doing some documents. I'm like trying to get this franchise up and going, and he sees me walk through the captain's office, and he's like, Torgeson, what are you doing? And like with a smile on my face, I'm all happy. I'm like, Gap, I'm starting a 24-hour health club. And he looks at me. Now, we already didn't have a good relationship, mind you, but he looks at me and he said, you ain't doing shit. And so that hit me hard. And I was like, you know what? We're going to find out. Mm-hmm. And I poured a lot of time and effort into it. And I became one of the top 100 grossing franchisees for Anytime Fitness in the world out of 10,000 health clubs.
Wow.
But what it took, not that was the only thing, right? But it certainly helps when people count you out. As men, we like to prove people wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey there, dudes and dudettes. This portion of the podcast is brought to you by Hikes Boots. You didn't think I was going to be talking directly to you, but look at this. Now we're having a conversation. It's pretty cool. So this portion is brought to you by Hikes Boots. And I just got to tell you, I said it before, but you can tell a lot about a brand by the way they choose to advertise. And Hikes, they didn't ask me to say anything specifically. They just sent me a couple pairs of boots and said, try them out and talk about what you think. And the God's honest truth is that I'm loving them. I've been wearing them for about a month now, and you know, my feet are loving it. They're super comfortable. They're super supportive. They look cool, which obviously matters a ton to me. If you could imagine. But no, for real, they're great. I'm super impressed. And I can't wait to, keep trying them out. But so far, it's just been amazing. So if you want more information about them, check them out at hikesusa.com. That's HAIXUSA.com. You can also check the show notes for that direct link. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rigaku Analytical Devices. These are the folks that have been perfecting the 1064 nanometer ramen longer than a lot of us have been in hazmat. And they just launched their 4th generation handheld analyzer. It's called the Icon X. It's built specifically for real world problems that hazmat teams are dealing with. We're talking about dirty powders and mixed materials, dyes, colors, all these things that make other instruments, throw a tantrum. The 1064 nanometer laser means reduced fluorescence, so you can get fast, reliable chemical ID in under a minute. Instead of just staring at a blank screen, wondering what went wrong or what you did wrong. And this platform isn't just an upgrade, it's a whole new toolbox. It supports new accessories, including standoff analysis, so you can get answers without getting too close. If you want an analyzer that's been evolving right alongside the hazmat world, check out Rigaku's newest ramen at rigakuanalytical.com. Once again, you can check the show notes for a little bit quicker link. Back to the show. And that first step I get, like I track in my brain, obviously, like I've been in that exact same circumstance before where someone counts you out and then now proving them wrong is the motivation to succeed. Once you taste success, how do you hold on to that same grit that took you the first time?
Yeah. That's why momentum is like so important. I think one, obviously there's like just each one of us has different characteristics and traits. And so people deal with things differently. For whatever reason, when I was counted out, I still had the personality and the traits to want to see those things through. And really it was here's what I learned, Jake, is what I was really upset about was not these people counting me out. It was my aha moment a few years ago. It wasn't even them counting me out. It was my low self-esteem. I had counted myself out in all of these things. And so what kept me going was proving to myself that I wasn't a piece of crap. Like I wasn't a dummy, that I could do things. Didn't matter. I'm a C&D student, or I'm freaking lazy, or that, I'm a procrastinator. Those are all traits that hold me back from stuff. And it was stuff, it was those things that I had to prove myself that no, I'm not that person. I'm this person. And so it took me a while to realize that it wasn't them I was trying to prove wrong. It was really, they were feeding a low self-esteem aspect that I had. And that's that self-talk, that self-leadership that's so important, is like how we view ourselves, when we look in the mirror, and what we say to ourselves and what we believe about ourselves. Typically it's a lie. It's a lie. And so I was believing that lie, and I didn't have, it's in my book, I call it mental sovereignty. I did not have mental sovereignty for many years. And so I had to prove to myself that I could do these things.
How did you go about making that discovery? What was there a catalyst to you realizing that all those things?
Yeah. No, I think it was just the progression. I don't think there was a catalyst. I think it's a progression in life. And I started to build momentum, because once you see that you can do these things, and then you're like, okay, here's a win. And then, I overcame this stuff, and you start building the resilience. And then eventually you get to a point in life where you feel like literally nothing can hold you back. And I truly feel that, like, if someone were to be like, hey, I need you to build a skyscraper in 5 years, I'm at the point now. And I say this humbly, not because I know how to, like, I say this humbly, and that is, but when you build momentum in life, I feel like it doesn't matter. Like, I will figure out in 5 years how to build a skyscraper. I'll literally get it done. Like, and there's no doubt in my mind.
It's so funny that you say that. It's so funny that you say that, because this is a constant joke in my household, because I have the exact same that mindset where, like, my wife gets a kick out of it, because I'll say, like, if I wanted to be an astronaut, I could be. Yep. Like, and she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I have the confidence. I don't know what, because I haven't historically had super great self-confidence, but there is some, I don't even know if it's a mechanism that's broken or damaged or whatever it is, and it's not a lack of humbleness. I don't know where the mechanism is, but that ability to say, if I need to get it done, I will achieve it. And I have, like, level 10,000 confidence in that, like, trust in myself to accomplish whatever the goal is. And I don't know. I don't know what the thing is. And, like, obviously just the way you described the skyscraper situation made me laugh immediately, because I was like, oh my God, it's the same complex. I don't know what the mechanism is to get to that point, but it is a really funny characteristic that I don't know if I've ever heard anybody else describe it in such a similar way to my, thing. But yeah, that's hilarious.
I love that so much, man. And here's the thing, though. It's not a mutually exclusive thing to us. And this is why I'm writing this book. It's called Forging You, Shaping the Leader Within. Talking a lot about my life experiences and how I got to where I'm at. Literally, every single person has the same mechanisms. Like, every single person has the ability to do whatever they want. And it sounds so cliche. It sounds, because that's, you're like, you can do anything you dream of, or you want, you hear that, but it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to experience. And you're like, gosh dang, like, that is gospel. It is straight up gospel. Now, going from hearing it and having the requisites and the mindset, is because it truly comes down to the mind, is a lot of tears. It's a lot of frustration. It's a lot of wanting to give up. At one point in my life, I was suicidal on some of this stuff, like ideation, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because we're talking about all the wins right now, but life isn't just a bunch of wins. Life is some wins and a lot of hardship in between. But I do feel if you can get through those times and you make it to the promised land, it only just gives you more and more confidence to be able to get back on the saddle and do it again and again. And then it becomes like this fixation with all of the hormones that it comes with, the oxytocin, the serotonin, the endorphins, the dopamine. And then you get addicted to it. Like, literally, I am addicted to what I set out to do when I was 15, 16 years old. And that is live 1,000 lifetimes in one lifetime, because I've discovered I can. This is how they did it. They discovered, they took the blue pill or whatever it is, or the red pill in the Matrix, they took the pill and discovered the same thing, just in the 1700s.
Getting back to that founding fathers fixation, how on earth, it seems like such an abnormal thing for a teenager to find interest in, right? Or early or young person. How on earth did you get exposed to that and drawn into that?
Yeah, I would say it was the paradox I was seeing in life. So that's why I told you that story of growing up in the yuppie neighborhood and even seeing my own parents. Like my dad, when he got out of the Marine Corps, he became an electrician, and that's what he did. He was an electrician, and my mom, she was a credit manager, and she still is a credit manager, and here's the thing is I am not looking down on that. I'm just saying it wasn't for me. And so when I saw that, you want an alternative. And then when you're in school and you see the alternative, you're like, that's where it's at. That's what I want to do.
That's a question that comes up sometimes that I'm kind of fascinated with, which is like, success isn't the right word, but maybe high level achievement or some version of that for everybody. Is that an aspirational desire for the masses, or is it not restricted based off of what's possible, but what is like the best version of somebody, right? Like I think that the example that I think of inside the fire service is, sometimes you'll see people say like, we're still going to need, hose draggers, or we're still going to not everybody needs to be the operations chief. Not everybody needs to be the strategy and tactics mastermind or whatever the discipline is. But me as somebody who has a strong desire to achieve in the highest form in each facet, I want everybody else to join that mafia, if you will. I want everybody else to have the same goals and desires and drive. And I guess if I phrase that into a question, it's, is that something that everyone should aspire for? Or is it something that it's okay? It's not to say that it's okay or not okay, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's sometimes frustrating.
I know exactly what you're saying. So it's such a great question. And it's something I learned the hard way, Jake. And it's in my first book. I literally talk about what you're talking about as an experience as a leader. And the analogy I use is I thought that everybody wanted to, because I'm projecting, right? I'm projecting my personality on people. I thought everybody wanted to aspire to greatness. They just needed someone to come alongside them, pour into them, remove obstacles, love them, want to share in their wins and victories. And so I was going to be that person because I want that for people. Because, it's like finding the cure for cancer, right? Like I want everyone to be cured from cancer. So here's the potion, right? Now it's not cancer, right? But it's just achievement. And so this is what I did as a young leader. I literally poured rocket fuel into everybody that I came across. And what a mistake that was. What a mistake. Because to answer your question, no, not everybody wants to do that stuff, nor do they have to or should. But I thought that's what I should be doing. And what happened is I was pouring, for the analogy's sake, I was pouring rocket fuel or racing fuel into mopeds. I was pouring racing fuel into diesel engines. Like, hey, this is a 4x4 diesel truck that is made for a specific, made specifically, like they have their own skills and traits, right? But what they needed was not racing fuel from me. They needed diesel fuel. They needed a different type of goal, and because they had different skill sets and different goals in mind, the motivation I'm trying to give them was not the correct motivation. And so that's why, in my experiences, and this is just a what's the right word? Another way where I think differently than many people, and that is, you've heard you don't need motivation, you need discipline, right? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
It's literally rampant, and everyone just takes it like, oh, yep, that's it. The problem is it's a half truth. And the reason why it's a half truth is because what doesn't get said is you don't need motivation, you need discipline when it comes to you. So when it comes to self leadership, they're absolutely right. But what happens is that gets conflated with leading, and that's I can't give you discipline. That's not how this works. For me, I can motivate you to get discipline, right? Motivational theory is very much alive, and we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so the reason why I say that is because as a leader, you truly need to understand how people are motivated and what they're truly trying to achieve. Because not everybody needs racing fuel.
Yeah. So especially for these younger people maybe that you're mentoring or getting to know, it's one thing to allow them to represent what they want, right? To say, hey, I want to achieve this, help me get there. What about if they don't know what they want and they don't even know what their potential could be? And you don't know whether they need diesel or racing fuel or whatever, right? How do we identify the trajectory for people that don't have it themselves?
Another fantastic question, and another thing I talk about in the book, because I mean, that's what it leads you to, right? Yeah. Is because you're like, okay, not everyone needs racing fuel. Here's the issue, and I think you're hitting it. But just to use our analogy, if everyone has a different engine, right, which is their capacity to be whatever they're going to be in life, it's what they're designed to do. Okay, so everyone has a different engine. The problem with leadership is when you if you were to go up a car, you just flip open the hood and you're like, oh, okay, this is a diesel engine. I need to put diesel fuel in here. You can't do that with humans. And so the analogy I use is it's like you were gifted a bunch of, vehicles, right? And you can't open the hood. You can only guess what type of fuel, what type of motivation this person needs. And so the only way to do it is to be a student of people. You have to care enough to actually learn and build relationships and understand where they want to go and what they want to do, see what their weaknesses are, and focus on the strengths. And then after a while, over time, you can understand exactly what's under the hood. But what we do is, and what I did, and it's just a mistake, is you just assume everyone is like you and has the same hood, the same engine under the hood, or they take a good guess at what's under the hood and they just start pouring into it, right? And they don't adapt, and they don't oh, okay, they're sputtering. Let's try something else. And so here's an example, when it comes to building a team and leading people, what I noticed is these motivations are far and wide, and it would blow my mind as a leader, and it still blows my mind to today, is some people they wanted your time, right? And they wanted you to kind of help them and assist them. And then that would get them going. Other people, it was downtime stuff. Hey, I will do as much as you want me to do. We'll train all day. We'll, get after it. I'll get after it on calls. I will be a workhorse. But when it comes to downtime, we're going to have good food. We're going to watch movies. We're going to play sports. And if you made sure that happened, they were badass firemen. If you didn't have that happen, right? That was just a motivating factor for them, whatever it is. They weren't budging, Other people was if I would buy breakfast, I was the greatest leader on the face of the earth. After a call, we went and got some donuts, or I bought them Slurpees. I would have firefighters be gosh dang, this dude is awesome. It's that's what gets you going. It's a Slurpee. Mm-hmm. But that's just how far and wide people are on motivational factors and what really touches them, really influences them and their relationship with you. And so you have to figure those things out. And so my answer to you is you have to be a student of people. And if you are, you'll eventually find out what's under the hood.
It almost seems like there is a correlation between like the love languages or something. Like,
Absolutely.
it seems like there's some sort of correlation between how people experience emotion, right, differently, and based on their life experiences and their lived experiences, how someone impacts another person, right? Along that line, do you think that people go through seasons, or do you think that the engine in is the engine that you keep for the rest of the time?
Have you read my book? Like, what is happening right now?
I have not. You haven't said it to me yet. That'll be after.
I am. In fact, I got like 5 or 6 people. I got to send it all out, and I'll do it all at once. So yes, absolutely, people go through seasons, and that's why I talk about in the book. It's not about like there's a lot of talk about having high performance teams, and that sounds great in theory, but in practice, it's not a thing. And the reason being is every single person on that team is going through life. And as you put, going through seasons, going through divorce, going through health scares with their wife and their children, or maybe like their dog dies, and that's like basically a family member for a lot of people, going through addiction, moral injury from friends and family members, that type of stuff. Everyone's going through their own thing, and that creates a season. And so when we come into work and we're expecting the best out of every single person, people can't just turn that off, especially when you live where you work. I think it's easier for other work organizations, industries, I guess, to turn that off for 6 to 8 hours in a day. You ain't turning that off for 24 or 48 hours. That ain't happening. And then here's the other thing too, is like, even if people can't turn that off when they go to, an office desk, they can still perform at a relatively high functional rate for the type of work, or at least what's expected of them, right? Like you can get through emails, you can get through putting data on paper, but where people are expected in offices to perform and where firefighters are expected to perform, it's not even the same universe. Our minimum of performance is out of this world compared to your 9-to-5 person. It's not even in the same ballpark. There is a chasm in between when we talk about performance and having a high performance team. And so to do that and do that with men and women that are, let's say like the heater goes out in the house. Well, guess what? You're stuck at work and the wife's calling you and it's like, yeah, the kids are freezing. I'm freezing. Once again, this happens. You're at work. I mean, how many times have we taken that? Yeah. It always happens when you're at work.
That's
right?
The trope. Yep, that's the thing.
Yep, for sure. And so people are dealing with that, and you're leading these people. And so, there's that's just obviously a small experience. But when you look at like kind of like the bigger things, like the divorce and deaths and stuff like that, that certainly creates a season. And you as a leader, you have to not look to have high performing teams. I don't think that's a thing, because as soon as Timmy's done with his season, then you got Frank who's going through his season. It's just like round and round we go, It's having an optimized team. And that is, what can I get the most out of this individual at where they're at this point in time in life, and being empathetic to that and compassionate, still keeping a standard, right? Like you still, no matter what, there's a minimum standard. But here's an example. I had a firefighter paramedic, and this is before I really discovered this truth about leading teams and building teams. Is I'm pouring racing fuel into everybody, but he taught me this lesson, and that is, he was going through a divorce, and basically he told me, that going through divorce is akin to going through a death in the family. It's truly a death of a relationship, and it hit him like a ton of bricks. And so we go out to like the back patio, and I'm just talking to him about things, and he's really going through it. And he tells me, he's like, "Hey Cap, I know everything that you're trying to achieve." And he's like, "I appreciate it and I'm on board, but I want you to understand something. I can't give it to you right now. Like, I can barely make it to work and do my checkouts. Like that's where I'm at, And I just had an aha moment, it was just like, man, like I'm sitting here trying to like just push and push and push and push. And this man just needs support. He doesn't need to be pushed. And so I told him, I said, Eric, I said, if that's all you can give me, that's all I want, man. That's all I want. I don't have any other expectations of you. And so, I teared up, and he did too. And we had a good moment together, but it really showed me that there's definitely seasons. And if you're going to be a good leader, you have to optimize that stuff. And it's not about racing fuel 24/7. It's not about trying to achieve this high performing team. No, it's an optimized team. What can you get? How can you get people to transcend their modus operandi in that moment? And that's good leadership. That is good leadership.
In a moment like that, where you have someone that is, under their typical capacity based off of circumstance, how does a good leader go about holding a standard that is a minimum while still being sensitive to circumstance, right? Because at the end of the day, we still have to go on runs. We still have an expectation from the public. How do I go about holding that standard in a sensitive but necessary way?
Man, another fantastic question. And honestly, I went through this recently. I had a captain, his father passed away. Now some backstory is this captain, he fell into a rut. He went through a season in life where he wasn't a very positive person at work, for many different reasons. And so when he came under my tutelage, I recognized that he was the influential person on my shift. He was a well-respected captain, but he wasn't the most positive person. And so one of the things that I do is I don't lead alone. And it's another really important aspect that all leaders need to understand is if you're leading alone, you're managing, because leadership isn't a single person endeavor. There's always going to be a formal leader and an informal leader in every work group, without fail. And what people need to understand is influence. And that is, just because you have rank, it doesn't give you influence, it gives you power. And people confuse the power with influence. Now, power can be influence, but when we're talking about leadership influence, it doesn't give you leadership influence, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because there's different types of influences, right? So what we're after when we're in these positions is leadership influence, not power influence. And so reason why that's important to this conversation and giving you some backstory is I have found it important to find whoever's on my team that has the most influence. And what I do is I go to that person when I'm first taking over the team, and I'm very transparent with them. I say, "Hey, I want to talk to you." "Yeah, what's up?" You are an incredibly influential person on our team. If you haven't recognized that yet, I'm letting you know that is a fact. You are going to make and break how this team is going to perform. And it hits people like a ton of bricks because they're not the person in charge, and you're telling them that they're the ones responsible of how this team is going to perform. I'm telling you, every single time I've had this conversation, it's like a aha moment for these people. And so I did this with this captain years ago. I said, hey, I need you, but here's the deal is I can't do this without you. I want to partner with you. And when I say partner with you, I mean that authentically, that let's lead this team together. And not a single one, and I'm talking typically, I would say more than half of the people I've had this conversation with were the toxic ones. It's not typically like the go-getters that have all the influence sometimes, but a lot of times it's the naysayers in the room that have a lot of influence, right? It's just how it works. The old salty dogs, right? But nonetheless is fast forward to this time, and what I'm seeing is he's going through this because his dad just died. And because his dad just died, he is now, when things are happening at work, he doesn't have the capacity to stay positive. He doesn't have the capacity to be resilient because he's in Maslow's hierarchy. Like, he's at the first level right now, right? He's at psychological safety. Like, he's in full like regress, like, I'm just trying to survive. And I have all these other things that I'm in charge of and all these other problems that are happening at work. And I need to like stay positive. Well, he wasn't. He was regressing in a very big way. And so I asked myself the question you just asked me. How the heck do I hold a standard with someone I need to be compassionate and empathetic about? Because it's not just like some Joe Schmo. This is my informal leader. Now, he has rank, but he's the informal leader in the sense of like, he's not in charge of the big group that I'm in charge of. He's just a part of that. He's just a leader within the group. So, but nonetheless, how do I get this person that has so much sway and influence to not regress and be negative around the guys and undermine everything we're doing, but at the same time, be compassionate and empathetic for his situation? So what I did is this, and I'm not saying this is the right way. I'm just saying this is what I did in a very real sense. Is one, I gave him a few days, like basically a week, of just watching and observing and seeing if he was going to pull out himself. I gave him time because I think if you're just on people right away, that's also a mistake. Just like, oh, you slipped up, I'm on you. Like, oh, no, got to hold the standard. I didn't do that, but I did observe, and I saw it wasn't getting better; it was getting worse. And so then I went to his peers, or a peer that's another informal leader within the group. I said, "Hey, have you noticed this with Captain such and such?" And he's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Listen, you and I both know, like, we can't go backwards in this stuff. Like, I can handle all of the stuff that doesn't matter, like, oh, check arts aren't getting done or whatever. Attitude and behavior, there's basically three things that they're non-negotiables for me. And that is attitude and behavior when it comes to positivity. Like, that's a non-negotiable. You're not coming to work with a bad attitude, non-negotiable. The other non-negotiable for me is you're coming to work ready to work. Like, some people like come to work like, oh, I on my side hustle and my family and my vacation, and now I'm going to come to work and relax. Like, no. That's a non-negotiable. And the last thing is respect and loyalty for the people on your crew. Like, do not let me hear you talking bad about people in this station on this shift because you're screwing up our team. So those are three non-negotiables. Everything else I can deal with. Like, there's a lot more grace. I don't have a lot of grace for the non-negotiables, right? And so that's a non-negotiable. I got my informal leader that is not acting like a leader. And so when I talked to this, his peer said, "Hey, will you do me a favor? Are you seeing the same thing?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, do me a favor. Go talk to him. I think it's going to sound different. It's going to come different coming from you of like, hey, this is what you're noticing." So I'm progressively escalating this thing, as opposed to like, I'm not doing it right away. I'm observing, right? I'm not like, after the observation, I'm not going to hammer him, right? Like, hey, dude, like, come on, this is non-negotiable. That's not the conversation when someone's going through it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's the progression. Like, all right, let me get a peer involved, right? And it's a peer I trust that won't, that will handle it correctly. And so he goes and talks to him about another few days, another shifts. I don't know. I didn't count, but like some time passes and it's kind of the same thing, right? I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Damn.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. Then what I do, and this is something I talk about all the time, is I come up with a communication plan. Like, okay, I need to handle this because it can't go unchecked. But at the same time, I need to be very, very considerate about what he's going through. And so I come up with a communication plan. And so the communication plan is the venue, the time I'm doing it, when is the most appropriate time to do this? Where should I do it? What should I say? What questions should I ask? What do I want the result at the end of this communication to be? And so I write it all down and I figure it out, and then I executed the plan. And so what I did is I chose in the morning going off shift. I chose that time because it gives him time to be off shift and be away from the environment and think about the things we're talking about versus in the middle of shift, first coming on to shift. It just puts people in a different mindset, right? And so that's why I chose that time. And that's why communication plans are so freaking important. People that just wing it, especially on critical conversations, you're not leading well. You're not doing a good job. So, and then I chose his dorm room. I didn't choose my office. We have this place that we call the leadership lounge. I didn't bring him into the leadership lounge. I wanted to be in his territory, in his room. I want to make sure I wasn't standing. I sat down. And then we talked about, his situation, and really we just talked about, how he was feeling and what he was going through. And he brought it up himself, which is great, is he recognized that because I was asking questions about everything, I didn't have to say like, hey, you are not acting appropriately for the leadership position that you're in. He recognized it. He knew why I was in there because I had already set those expectations. He knew my non-negotiables. He knew why I was in that room. And so basically he told me, he said, hey, I appreciate your patience. He's like, I'm going to fix it. Don't worry about it. I'm going to fix it. And he said that on his own. I didn't have to tell him to do it. And you know what that captain did? He freaking fixed it. Now, was he still going through stuff? Absolutely. Was I still there for him? Absolutely. But that's how that one kind of worked out. And so to answer your question, I would say that it's delicate and it needs to be progressive.
There's one other relationship dynamic. Well, there's 1,000 other ones, but there's one more that I particularly want to try to touch on before I let you go here today. And I already can tell that we're going to have to do it again because I have too many questions for us to even fit it into one podcast. So we'll have to do another one at some point. But I want to touch on one more relationship dynamic that happens very frequently in the fire service. And I want to get your thoughts on how to navigate it. And that is, I work with these people. Now I'm their boss. How do I lead them when we used to be peers?
Yeah, that is one that I have struggled the most out of my entire career. And I don't think that's groundbreaking by any means. And it's because, and it's even more than that, is not only were they my peers, but a lot of times they were my boss. And now I'm their boss. And that's happened to me my entire career, from being an NCO. Like I was like freaking 19 and I had like 20, late 20s, some early 30-year-olds that like I'm in charge of, owning my business. I was in the same situation where I'm like in my mid 20s and I have like 35-year-olds and, like you name it, that entire range. And I have to make sure I'm putting bread on the table for them and the business is successful because they're dependent upon the business and I'm in charge of them. In the fire service, it's been the same way where just I've been the young kid in the room, and then that dynamic spreads into like I'm now leading peers or I'm leading people that were my boss. And let me tell you, that's probably been one of the most difficult hurdles my entire career. It's super difficult because one of the things with it is there's many times resentment and there's jealousy and there's all those things that we're just naturally as humans. And you get to deal with those things. That's why I've cried more times than I can count, because I love people and I care about people. And I'm just like, man, why does this person wouldn't pee on me if I was on fire? Like, what did I do to this person? You know?
Yeah.
And it's because I've held people that were my peers or people that were in charge of me before accountable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so here's what I'll say is you have to have, how you do it is you have to have a process. You can't wing it, man. And part of that process is you have to go through a you suck phase. So in my book, I call it chaos and controlled chaos. And that is, there's 6 phases that every team has to go through in order to actually become a team. And mind you, teams are rare. Teams are extremely rare. You'll know when you've been on a team though, because here's an example. Accountability is going to come from the peers. It ain't coming from you as the leader. Your team actually has an identity, meaning there's something that makes your work group, the people that you work with, they feel special, and it's for a reason. And so they identify it, and then what they do is they start protecting that identity. Like, hey, this is Station 51. We're the Rough Riders or whatever the heck, you know, like
yeah.
If you don't have an identity, you're not on a team. The other thing is a deep sense of loyalty. Is you're on a team when someone's talking crap about someone on that team, and one of those team members is like, hey, is that your story to tell? Or, hey, you don't even know what you're talking about. That ain't true, right? Whatever the case may be, you see that stuff, right? And then you have this shared consciousness, right? Where like, I know exactly what all these guys are doing before they even do it. When we get on scene, we're just a well-tuned engine. And here's one of the biggest things is because you're on a team and because you truly love and enjoy working with these people, you can't wait to get to work and just be. It doesn't matter what shitty thing is coming down from management. It literally doesn't matter because you're in such a bubble that nothing can affect you because you're with that group of people. And that is such a special place to be in the fire service or in any business or career field. But the reason why that's important is because how you navigate what you're just talking about is the first couple of steps. And that is you have to go through the you suck phase. And the you suck phase is that people need to understand whether they were your peers before or they were your boss before, that there's a behavioral standard. There's non-negotiables with this, and that's where you draw the line. And guess what? Especially if they were your boss before, they ain't gonna like that. And now you start to see why it's so important to have that informal leader, because you ain't making it out of that you suck phase, right? You ain't making it out of those first 2 phases, right? If you aren't having non-negotiables, if you're not partnering with that informal leader, that way you're not swimming in 2 different directions, because you'll just stay in chaotic phase and more people will just hate you and your reputation will get worse, even though you're doing everything you can in your power just to lead people well and love people. That's why I say this, brother, and I'm going to share one thing with the audience. If there's anything that out of this entire podcast that I want people to remember is this. When it comes to leadership, influencing people is the basics. Developing a group of people into a team, that is advanced level leadership, because you're not moving the needle doing the basics and just influencing people. There's another level of leadership that we in the fire service need to get to. And it's why I am such a proponent of my mission, and that is to build teams, is because we're so focused on the basics that we're forgetting what the real aim of leadership is. And the real aim of leadership, and especially in the fire service, where we deal with nothing but teams, it is team building. So if you're stuck in the basics and you're always just like, oh, you just need to communicate better and you need to, empower people, like just all the same fluff that you hear over and over and over again. And we keep having this leadership problem over and over and over again. They have all these gurus come out to their departments, and guess what? Nothing changes. The reason why nothing changes, brother, is because we're so focused on the basics. We need technical people out there. And the technical side of leadership is what I'm explaining to you. Is there's a whole skill set that people need to understand on how to bring these groups of people using the basic stuff as well, right? But adding on the technical aspect of leadership, of how to now coalesce this into this special thing that we call teams that people will never forget their entire career.
Well, I don't think there's any better way to end off this thing, despite the fact that I could probably talk to you for another 4 hours. Maybe we'll run it back here at some point. Johnny, it's been a pleasure. It's been a treat. So much knowledge, so many stories, so much wisdom. Tell the people where they can find more information about you, where they can find more information about the book.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's www.forgingteams.com. And on there, I give a lot of free resources. So a lot of the systems that I do, I literally give out free. And it's on there. All these podcasts, like the podcast we're doing today, I'll throw up on there as well. Articles that I've written, and then all the services I provide. From I do executive coaching to fire chiefs, to consulting, going out to different departments, as well as workshops, and then speaking around the nation on this stuff. So it's all on there. All that information is there, and I'd love to help whoever wants it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.